Thank you so much for joining us. Where in the world are you now?
I'm in Kauai. I came right over after tour 2, so I've been here since last Wednesday. Just having a little downtime. A lot of the team's out here, so, we get some work as well, but
I was going to say downtime, but it's a good opportunity, I guess, to touch base with kind of the main team and reflect on the tour stop 2 and everything that's just happened.
yeah, definitely. No time zones to have to work around while I'm out here, so it's a little bit more efficient that way, and obviously this background is nice, so good work environment.
Oh, it's beautiful. What has been your number one takeaway from tour stop number 2?
Ooh, that's a good question. I think our team was just challenged in a lot of different ways than it was in tour 1. We had some equipment stuff that we needed to dial in internally. We had some equipment failure that was out of our control. And how did we come up with contingencies on the fly and adjustments for scores and all of that? So a lot of time spent with the review and appeals team. So that bond is even stronger now. But I think I guess the overarching thing that we learned was just how to communicate internally with the team and make sure that the message delivered to the public is clear and concise, which I think is valuable as we're, a very young organization. So happy with how all that came to fruition.
All right. Well, so I think one of the biggest, I wouldn't even call it criticisms, but I think maybe questions people might have overall in terms of the athletes that are competing live. This is kind of a two-part question. Number one, why do we still separate the pro and challenger division into two separate competitions instead of just having maybe a 50 athlete field that may create more chaos on the leaderboard? One, and two, did you anticipate the online qualifiers having as big of an impact on the overall season as they do in terms of those athletes who do have to make that cut line?
I'll start with the second part. Um, yeah, I did anticipate the online qualifiers heavily dictating who would be in Copenhagen at the end of the season, just because of the point allocation given at each Tour 1 and Tour 2. If you skipped one, you're really, really hurting your chances of getting a qualifying bid because it is a cumulative point scenario to reach a qualifying position and get a ticket to the finals. So yes, I anticipated that. I think some athletes appreciated the value of those points. Others would qualify and not show up, and then showed up to the second one and are kicking themselves for not, doing both, even if they were just a challenger in the first one. So yes, and that delivered. And then the first question, refresh me.
The why you have the challenger versus the pros instead of just a 50 athlete field?
Yeah, yeah. I thought for us this season, it was cool to have essentially two different competitions going on within the same uh, within the same facility. So next year, we're adding in Challenger Series events that will be given the Challenger point allocation, which is a little bit less than a pro point allocation, but still allows athletes around the world to earn points on the pro tour. So that was really why we did that. And just to be completely honest, like the prize money allocation also was something that we wanted to, and with the guaranteed money and things like that, you this year you almost needed to protect the pro field a little bit because of the guarantees. Uh, so that was a way of doing that without, there's always going to be outliers that could essentially impact that, which isn't. That's just what we decided to do internally, as opposed to having, a field of 50 where some unsigned pro could come in and win, and that could impact the way our contracts were, which is that's more of a math game than anything else. Next year, it'll look a little bit different, and the fields will be a little bit bigger in the pro division, and the challenger events will be separate from the pro events completely. But yeah,
And one little follow-up to that, so based on how things have gone this year, I know I anticipate more participation from higher level athletes next year. I assume you might do the same, and so with that, is that part of why you may be expanding how many athletes get to compete in the pro? Because like we saw this year, in the challenger division in Tour Stop 1, you had athletes like Ty, Tudor, and others who, like, not that they don't have any business down there, but they don't have any business down there. Like, they're as good as a lot of the pros. And so, expanding that field may give athletes at that level might make the pro level like more dense with competition. Is that something you're looking for?
Yeah, and it creates more parity on the leaderboard, which I think is important, and it gives more athletes opportunities to actually approach this as a professional career. I think that the way this season has gone so far, athletes do really value the pro card and the opportunity to have, consistency in their season and some like a short thing, for lack of a better phrase, with with what comes with the pro card. You get entry into, 2 events this year, no matter what, or 3 events this year, no matter what, because of that pro card. And there's a lot of assistance with travel and accommodation. So there's a lot of nice things that come with the pro card. Brands, I think, appreciate it, knowing that we'll use, Ty, if he were to get a pro card for next year, he can be on the at a pro competition with the best athletes in the world multiple times a year, no matter what. And as far as an investment from a brand standpoint, that's a big deal. They're investing hundreds of thousands of dollars sometimes into these athletes, and to know that their people will be on the floor, it makes them feel good. So that is, I think, something that the athletes are starting to understand, and it just naturally will take stress away from scheduling your life outside of sport. I'm going to be in Indianapolis in May, I'm going to be in Phoenix in August, and I'm going to be in Copenhagen in December, and I can kind of plan my life around that, and my training around that. So just trying to, not to beat the dead horse and say, oh, professionalize the sport, but really just give people an opportunity to schedule their lives and act like professionals in a field that has otherwise been a little bit chaotic historically.
It, we've got two tour stops down. Got 14 scored workouts under your belt, with a 4-day competition ahead of you. Is there anything from the first 2 tour stops, whether it be how programming elements played out, or maybe individual performances that stood out, that made you reframe a little bit about what needs to be on the programming plate once we get to Denmark?
I don't think no, I think the finals has been, I'd say, 90% done for a while. I'm tweaking it this week. I've tweaked a few things, but the general feel of what those specific workouts is very similar. It's more of making sure that the time caps fit into the broadcast schedule, and we're to that level of detail now. So I think what we want out of the finals is still the same as what we wanted out of the finals a couple months ago when we wrote out the initial skeleton of the season. Now it's just making sure that we have enough time to get it all in. But, we're adding swimming in. There will be a little bit more aerobic stuff happening at the finals, with just like a couple, or maybe one longer duration event. So yeah, I'm happy with what's going to happen there. And I think next year will be more of where we add in new stuff that hasn't been around traditionally to the tour. So, and we'll announce that shortly. I mean, I talked about it at the coaches meeting. We're planning on introducing cycling in some type of way. We're planning on introducing a hybrid event. Project One, obviously, is what we run at all of our events. We're planning on introducing that to the pros in the future. So we're getting that type of a test for our athletes that we do consider the best in the world in the fitness space. And then obviously we'll have the traditional functional fitness stuff. So broadening the scope of what the WFP Tour events looks like is happening a little bit at the finals, but will certainly evolve even more into Tour One in 2026.
That's interesting. So if I'm hearing you correctly, there'll be things that are a little bit out of the normal scope, but challengers will be able to accumulate points for their overall standing, and possibly qualifying for the finals, by doing something like a hybrid event or a cycling event or something else. It'll be what they're used to.
Those will just be included within our tour. So if we have
Oh,
6 events, we'd have maybe like a cycling or dressage, and we'd have maybe, a hybrid event at the tour as well, along with all of the stuff or similar stuff that we've seen this season already. So just maybe getting away from the traditional functional fitness competition that you've seen the past 2 events, and just diversifying what the athletes are tested on just a little bit, in next year's season, which a lot of people are doing that already. You know, James did a triathlon. He did a 70.3 and did an incredible job of it. So obviously these athletes have the capacity to go and do that and recover while they're still training for the WFP season, which is a little bit different demand. And then you see a lot of athletes doing high roxes and things of that nature just for fun stuff with their friends. So why not make that one of our events and see what they can do in that setting? It's just, I think it's the responsibility of us as the WFP to try and broaden the scope of what the best fitness athletes in the world are doing in a race scenario. And that's exciting to me. That's exciting to the team. And yeah, Copenhagen will have a little bit of that. So that'll be cool to see.
As far as like the schedule goes next year, what kind of preparation or thought are you putting into the athletes that are trying to juggle competing in multiple different competitions? I mean, there's not only just the CrossFit Games, but some people commit to things like the Wadapalooza events, and there's lots of other bigger name comps that people want to participate in. Is there any thought to how you guys want to juggle the expanded tour season with all the other events that we anticipate happening?
Yeah, certainly. We've already spoken to a couple of those big events, and whether that's just trying to figure out how we can allocate points for the pros and challengers and teams and age groups that participate at those competitions, just to give them, obviously if you go to Wadapalooza, you win some prize money, but how do we make them a more meaningful part of the season? Just using Wadapalooza because you mentioned that, but events like that, how can we integrate them in? And there's a criteria that they need to meet in order to be considered to be a part of the pro tour, as far as like the movement list, drug testing, the number of workouts in the weekend because of points earned, that type of stuff. The divisions that they serve, do they have age groups? Do they have teams of 4, which we're integrating into the WFP season next year? So as long as those competitions can meet the criteria and we can come to an agreement on some marketing stuff, it shouldn't be too hard to make that work, and then make sure that when the athletes are spending time and money traveling to those events, that they can get a little bit bang for their buck towards the WFP tour as well, is important to us. So yeah, we're actively having those conversations, and then we're actively planning our events at the same time. So yeah, a lot of opportunities next year for athletes to compete, and a lot of opportunities to make it to the championships in 2026.
Let me ask you this: since you're in theory trying to partner with some of the bigger existing events for the tour stops to earn points, is there any truth to that rumor about some of the exclusivity clauses and some of the pro card contracts? Is there? Okay.
There's no truth to any of the exclusivity stuff. I think that was maybe there's been a little bit of smear campaigns going on, if you ask me, and that's their job, unfortunately, to create false narratives, and they're doing a great job of that. And I think it's my job to continue to execute on the work that I'm asked to do, and maybe not listen to them all the time when they're lies. But yeah, so I think that is a complete and utter lie. There's no exclusivity. There's just not enough money and time and all those things to make these athletes decide. I think that there's amazing events out there. The CrossFit Games is the history of the sport. Obviously, I made a career out of that. Rogue is maybe the best event in the world right now as far as experience, showcase, lights, has the best athletes. Katie and Bill take care of the athletes just as good, if not better, than everybody in the space. Wadapalooza is a massive showcase that obviously serves the community more than maybe any other event in the space right now. So it's important to not take away those opportunities as the WFP. It's important to be able to let all the athletes that want to compete in functional fitness be able to do that, and understand that schedules, and understanding that our schedule is pretty heavy one, at least for the pro and challengers. And if people want to go to Wadapalooza because their schedule works out, or they want to go to Rogue or anything else, it makes sense to let them be able to do that. So no, that's a lie.
I have one follow-up to that too. I'm probing a little bit today. So if you have a contract as a pro, will there be a minimum number of tour stops you have to attend to meet your contract like duties?
Right. So next year, and we're still working through that because we are having these conversations with other events. say we were to have 4 tour events in a final or 3 tour events in a final, and then we have Challenger Series events that are also partnered with the season. Lower point allocation towards the Pro Tour, but still opportunities. The plan right now is to say, hey, if there's that many opportunities, we'll take the athlete's top 3 point earning performances, and the points that they accrue from those top 3 will be what places them in the top 30 or 40 to go to the finals next year. So you can compete as much as you want. You have as much opportunity to earn money and deliverables for your brands or whatever you need to do from an appearance standpoint. But we'll take, as a WFP, the top 3 point earning performances, and that will be the way athletes qualify into the finals. So it allows for, if I'm up signed pro and I miss tour 1 because I'm sick or something like that, I could still go to other events and earn some points and try to make sure that I'm in that top echelon of athletes that gets to go to the finals next year.
Very good.
Yeah, I mean, if it's rolling, just like as far as a lot of the false narratives that are put out there, by media or whoever, I think it's important that people know that, like I said earlier, that tabloid media or whatever you want to call it, it is their job to create false narratives. And it's unfortunate because it's not just me, it's not just our team, it's not just the athletes that they're impacting, but it's not their job to consider how it impacts the company. It's not their job to consider how it impacts the athletes that they might be trashing. It's their job to just get clickbait. And it's our job as athletes, as business, as media for WFP to just continue to do our job. It doesn't mean it's easy. It's hard when people are talking crap, or if you have a bad weekend, some media is going to say, oh, this athlete's lost it. That's unfortunate. They don't necessarily have to care about people's mental health or success as a business. But I think it's just important for anybody that's had to deal with that BS that, it's just part of the job. And it's important to understand like what you stand on and understand that as athletes, you're trying to do something that you're passionate about and that you love, and it's not always going to be easy. And as a business, when you're trying to create something great that may be considered disruptive by some, we think it's additive personally. And as an organization, I think it's important to just keep the people around you that are supportive. Make sure you lean on it's like I forget what the saying is, but it's like, I wouldn't take advice from somebody that's never done what I've done. And I think that's important for athletes, for media people that might be getting beat, for people within our organization. So that was a little bit sporadic, but I think that's a good message. Like, one, don't believe everything you hear, because a lot of those people might not even believe what they're saying. And then if people are talking shit, it's probably because you're doing something right.
I do like the I don't like that necessarily people are talking shit in a negative way, as you put it, but I do think that when people talk about things, whether right, wrong, or indifferent, it does give you anyone an opportunity to respond to that and elevate whatever it is they want to talk about. Because if no one was talking about you, you wouldn't be relevant at all, whether it's good or bad, right? So even if you don't like some of the stuff they're saying, it gives you a chance to respond and put your actual message out there, whatever that message might be. So me personally, and I'm not on the level of you and WFP and the things you have to deal with, but if someone's going to say something about me, it gives me a chance to put out there in the world what I want people to hear about me and what I'm doing. So that's kind of how I look at it personally.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah.
Well, gents, thank you very much. We'll let you get back to the hard work that you're putting in behind the scenes with your beautiful blue pool and sunny sky.